you believe in the Boy Scouts of America.
But that's not racial segregation, right?
So gender segregation is okay.
Because there's distinct differences between men and women.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Versus, I want to keep you out of my institution because I think you're racially inferior to me.
I think they're sinister cousins of the same strain. I mean, like, segregation is wrong. Right?
But you believe in the Boy Scouts of America.
But that's not.
What? Did she just compare the Boy Scouts of America to freaking racial segregation? Sometimes when I sit here and I do videos, I truly try to be as objective as possible. If you know my channel, I try to be as objective as possible. But when you compare the Boy Scouts of America, actually, you know what? I'm speaking too soon. Let me see why she said that. That's the least I can do. Why did you compare the Boy Scouts of America to racial segregation? Let's see.
Like, segregation is wrong.
But
right?
you believe in the Boy Scouts of America.
But that's not racial segregation, right?
So gender segregation is okay.
Because there's distinct differences between men and women, but there's not differences between the races.
Well, many people feel differently.
What?
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's like saying that NBA is segregation because because women are in it. Are men and women's locker room segregation? Is the boys' restroom segregation? Like, do you hear how stupid this is? And I understand you have a point that you have to prove, or you have a side that you have to be on. But let's be honest here. This gotta be a joke.
What are the differences between races?
There are all kinds of cultural differences that exist across cultures all over the world.
Hold on, not cultural, race, like melanin content.
Well, yeah, in America, Black Americans have our own culture. Now, there are other Black populations
I know,
here.
But like race, like actually the DNA of somebody.
Well, right. I understand what you're saying.
I'm saying there's no difference.
But the reality of those Black dorms historically, and part of why things are changing now is because we have a much more diverse Black population than we've had historically with more recent immigrants coming into the picture.
Well, we're seeing more Black dorms, like Black-only dorms, right? We're seeing like a kind of spread.
I don't know that to be true. If you say that's true, that's true.
Let's just pretend.
I haven't been in college.
Let's say that it's neutral.
Years.
Let's just say it's neutral. Like or I'll give you another example. Columbia University Black-only graduation ceremony.
Yeah, lots of universities have that. It's not Black only. It's just an additional Black. It's just an additional
right, which
graduation.
I think is like racist and wrong and awful.
Okay.
Okay, she said okay. So basically, he brought up the fact that there's a Black-only graduation at Columbia University and how he thinks it's wrong. And her answer was, okay. And he also brought up the fact that there's a rise of Black-only dormitories at I'm assuming predominantly white institutions. The reason why this is wrong is because, well, other than the blatant racism, that's the obvious reason. I think we should know that at this point. There's just obvious discrimination and racism, segregation. But those are the easy answers. Let's get into the nitty gritty. The reason why this is wrong is because if you go to a predominantly white institution, or you go to even a college in America that has a mixed race of people, a mixed bag of races, since Black people only account for 13% of the United States population, and we don't go to college at the highest or even top 3 highest rates in the country, the chances of a Black body being at that school is less than 10% of the population. Let's look at Harvard, Columbia, Princeton, Purdue, Rice, all these universities. I'm just listing a few. They probably have less than 10% Black people. At the most, I would say 20% Black people. So here's what's happening. You're giving special privilege, which, you're giving them their own dorm, to a very, very small minority of people. And you're giving them their own graduation. The reason why this is a problem is because this is not being done for the Asian Americans at the school. This is not being done for the Latino Americans at the school. This is being done for the smallest minority people at these said schools. That's favoritism. That alone should be wrong. You're favoriting one specific group of people. If you take into account certain acts and certain scholarships that already favor African Americans or minorities, whether or not how you define minorities is up to you, then it's just, you're giving them their own dorms, you're giving them more scholarships, which literally there are platforms just for minority scholarships. I'm not making this up. You're giving them own graduations. This is causing problems in society. This is causing resentment in society. But let's continue.
But like, if there was a white-only graduation ceremony, how would you think about
Well,
that?
if there were like, I don't know, a Catholic ceremony or an Irish ceremony
you can
or
convert to
a Hillel ceremony,
No, but-
I don't have an issue with it
Okay,
personally.
but Catholicism you can convert to, Hillel you could convert to, Irish.
Some people don't.
Well, you could convert to Judaism, but the Irish is culture,
Yeah.
right? Which is not racial inherently. There's very
Sure,
few people
yeah.
that aren't white that are Irish, but this idea of this like preference on melanin and DNA, like, isn't that really it's like a dangerous direction,
Well, I can
right?
tell you, I didn't go to black graduation, but lots of my friends did. And I would say that the people who went didn't do it because it was about DNA. They did it because they felt a cultural kinship with the other black people in the class.
No,
and you don't have to respect that culture as much as you see Irish people as having a distinct culture. But I will tell you, black people feel very much like we have a cultural kinship to each other.
But
Just to acknowledge that, I'll preface this by saying I did go to a historically black college, so my graduation was a very large majority black. And when it comes to cultural, I would say if you are at a school, you probably do feel culturally closer to people who look like you and probably share similar experiences to you. I can see that happening. But that doesn't negate the fact that it's still wrong to have a all black graduation at a predominantly white school. Although you may feel like it helps you as a student, it makes you feel good, it can easily make other students feel bad. What if that other student grew up in the same culture as you? What if they also are experiencing the same culture, but the only difference between them and you is that they're white? They would literally not be allowed to go to that graduation because of their skin color. All I'm saying is, when you discriminate based off of skin color, whether or not students feel good about it, whether or not students feel bad about it, I just think it's wrong. I think it should be fair across the board, whether or not you want to go to an all-black graduation or don't, is racist. If you really wanted to have a cultural connection, why did you choose a predominantly white institution or a predominantly mixed race institution? You went to this school, then you wanted to change the school, or you decided that the people who are at this school just aren't good enough to graduate with. I don't want to graduate with y'all. I want to graduate with the other 10% minority of black people at this school. That's wrong to me. But let's continue.
just to be consistent, like a white-only graduation ceremony, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant graduation ceremony, morally, you'd be okay with.
If the WASPs feel culturally coherent and want to have a ceremony, then
Okay.
that's fine with me.
Okay, I want to try to de-Balkanize America, right? I think
Sure.
I think these kind of the creation.
Unless
of,
it's the Boy Scouts.
well, but that's gender. Gender differences are completely important for formative reasons, sociological reasons.
Do you
So,
think that it's wrong to have international houses at these universities?
I don't love it. I'll be very honest. I don't.
Okay, well then that's consistent. And that's fine.
I think that if you come to America, I want you to try to participate in our attempt to be a multiracial republic, right? In the attempt. Like, I don't love the idea of hyphen America. I don't like this idea of Chinese American, Iranian American, African American. I want to try, albeit clumsy, to strive towards the idea that I'm an American. Like, I don't.
So I hear that, Charlie. And if I could just say this, I think this is such a crucial point. And I've had this conversation with Glenn Lowry and Andrew Sullivan, and this always comes up. Part of, I think, why some black people and other non-white people bristle a little bit at this idea that, you know, people like yourselves really want individuality and the ability to be your own person and not to be subsumed in stereotypes or groups or tribalism, is that the whole story, the whole narrative of advocating for yourself on the basis of your identity historically has been because by law, you weren't allowed to be an individual. By the Constitution, you were 3/5 of a person.
And here's the problem that I have with the direction that she's going in. You can say by law you weren't allowed to be an individual and you were 3/5 of a person, which are also 100% true, by the way, when she said that. But the problem that I have is that if you use this type of discussion or this type of argument when you're in a debate, you will always win. And the reason why you will always win is because history, I don't care how hard you try, history will never change. What's in the past No matter how far in the future we get, will always be there. And the reason why that's daunting is because no matter how much progress America makes, no matter how many solutions America comes up with, as long as that happened, it will always be relevant. Meaning, black people can do anything. We can get the highest test scores. We can graduate college at the highest rates. We can become the richest in the country. But as long as you in your mind believe that since there was a civil rights movement, since there was a 3/5 of a person which was happening, you will always believe that we're discriminated against. You will always believe that we need reparations. You will always believe that we're at fault to other citizens. You will always believe that we are victims, no matter how much progress happens. And the reason why I can conclude this is because you're in a debate talking about segregating dorms in 2024. And one of the first things you say to support this argument of segregating dorms in 2024 is the civil rights movement. That's one of the first things you say. 3/5 of a human. That's one of the first things you say. In 2024, nothing has happened in the past 100 years. But that's where your brain goes. To me, it's just kind of sad. It's just kind of sad to me, but let's go.
By Jim Crow laws, you couldn't ride the same trains as whites or drink at the same water fountains. By redlining, we're allowed by law to live in the same neighborhoods as whites, or you at least weren't going to be granted a loan to be able to live in the same neighborhoods as whites. And many of those white neighborhoods had restrictive covenants in the lease that explicitly precluded black people from living in those neighborhoods. And people wanted to be individuals. People wanted to be able to live where they wanted to live, go to school where they wanted to live, go to the hospital they wanted to go to, marry who they wanted to marry. And the literal laws of the United States of America said, no, you cannot do that. And so people started to advocate, okay, I'm black and I don't have access to this privilege. I'm Asian and I don't have access to this. I'm Latino, I'm Chicano. And we had all of these movements to get people to be able to be individuals. So people bristle a little, I think, at this idea that the existence of advocacy along identity lines is to be balkanized. It's quite the opposite. It's to push back against the feeling, whether or not you agree that it persists, to push back against what people perceive to be barriers to them living their life fully as individuals.
9 out of 13 states had abolished slavery by the Constitution. Northwest Ordinance had all new territories were free.
And what do you take from that? That America wasn't racist?
Not only that, we were the first country to abolish slavery, not just continue the practice of it. I mean, every other nation.
And just like that, like I mentioned, the whole debate is different now. This isn't even about segregating dorms anymore. This is about, was America racist in the 1930s or whatever year they're talking about. Just like that. And this is why debating with people who bring up these type of points is so harmful, because no matter how far we progress as a nation, as a country, if I say, oh, we were 3/5 of a human, you cannot beat me, because now we're talking about, oh, when did America abolish slavery? We're not talking about the people who are getting discriminated against right now, who cannot get a dorm room at certain colleges. We're not talking about black-only graduations. We're talking about 3/5 of a human. Do y'all, and this is not even about if I personally agree or disagree with her as a human. This is about her debating tactics. This is about her mentioning of racism. This is about discriminating at universities. Whether or not I support who she is as a human isn't even relevant. But it's impossible to have these type of discussions and actually make any progress with people who always, their default is 1930, 3/5 of a human civil rights era. It's impossible. It could be the year 3000. They could still bring that up. It don't matter. But anyways, if y'all want to see the rest of this, comment down below. It's LFR Jojo.